Afro Tales podcast is a part of the Connected Podcast Network.
Ahoy, my friends. Welcome aboard the Afro Tales podcast. I'm your storyteller, Aman Mazinga. Join me as we explore the tales that grew from the people of Indigenous and African descent in the Americas and the Caribbean.
After, come and see me, chef, who will impart upon you a recipe for the story you have just heard.
So with no further ado, let us set sail on this new age of exploration. The Lake of the Dead. There's a lot of swampland on the coast of South Carolina. The big swamps are filled with strange creatures and plants, and locals assert that people are drawn to them like a trap draws flies. There's something about the mysterious nature of the swamps that breeds stories of the supernatural. And children on the South Carolina coast hear them from their grown-ups and repeat them to one another. One night, Tommy and his younger brother Hale were out hunting possum and not having much luck. "Something must be dead around here," said Hale. "See the buzzard up there? Maybe if we follow it, we can grab whatever it is that's dead." They both looked up to watch the buzzard flying in the light of the moon. "Stay away from the path of the buzzard," Tommy warned Hale. "For if you walk in the buzzard's path and you wander too far, you'll land on the shores of the Lake of the Dead." "What's the Lake of the Dead?" Hale asked, his eyes wide. "It's a place in the big swamp over yonder," Tommy answered. "Hardly anyone knows where it is, but if you wander far enough and long enough, you'll find it." "How do you know where it is?" Hale wanted to know. "I've been there," Tommy assured him. "You're lying," Hale said. No, I'm not, said Tommy. "Then let's follow the old buzzard and you can show me." The two boys walked through the swamp for what seemed like hours, following the buzzard by the light of the full moon. At last, the buzzard began to circle in a place, and soon the boys entered a clearing and beheld a large lake. The shores were littered with dead things, a hog in one place, a cow in another, a little bird here, a rabbit there. As the boys looked around at the body-littered shore, a deer approached from the swampy woods. The animal walked to the edge of the water. It raised its head as if listening intently. Then it stretched its neck out over the water. Suddenly, it drew back, then turned tail and ran back to the woods. We could have bagged that deer," Tommy whispered. "Maybe we should take one of those dead ones," Hale suggested. "Maybe we should take one of those dead ones," Hale suggested. "You kidding?" said Tommy. "Even the buzzards ain't eating them." The boys watched 3 buzzards walking slowly through the shore of the lake, as if their only purpose was to make the place look more dreadful. They didn't touch the carcasses, just walked around. Once in a while, they shook themselves, stretched out their necks, and made high screeching sounds that made the boys shiver in fright. "Let's get out of here," whispered Tommy. "I feel like there's another world creeping up on me." "Is this how it was last time?" Hale wanted to know. "There was no last time. Let's go." And Tommy took off for the edge of the clearing, and the swampy woods. After they got back home, the boys had a hard time explaining to their folks how they could be out most of the night and come back empty-handed. They were too frightened to say where they had been. Their parents noticed afterwards that the boys didn't act like themselves anymore. The least little thing scared them, and every time they saw a buzzard circling in the sky, they ran and hid. The Ghost of Gabe. Back in slavery times, a slave named Gabe lived on the Whitehall plantation. He had restless ways and made people uneasy, but they were used to him. Then one day he disappeared, and no one knew what happened to him. Years later, Gabe came back. He emerged out of the woods late one evening and met up with an old man named Long Jim. It was a cold, cold night, and Long Jim was just about frozen. He said to Gabe, Let's find some shelter. No one lives in the Whitehall house now. All folks have gone away." So Gabe and Long Jim went to the Whitehall house. They collected some wood and built a fire in the fireplace. Long Jim sat by the fire and looked around, and he started getting a creepy feeling. Every time the wind whistled, the house would tremble and cracked and groaned, and Long Jim started imagining people coming out of the shadows. He thought of the white folks who used to live in the house and of the slaves who worked there. Several times he thought he recognized faces in the window, and when he saw the faces, the shutters rumbled and rolled. To get his mind off of what he thought he was seeing, Long Jim tried to talk to Gabe. But Gabe wasn't in a talking mood. Suddenly, Long Jim heard a voice out in the wind calling, "Gabe, Gabe." The voice rose to a scream. "Gabe! Gabe!" Then it turned into a wail. "Gabe! Gabe! Gabe!" Long Jim looked at Gabe, and Gabe laughed. It wasn't exactly a laugh, more like a cackle, as if he was trying to aggravate the voice that was calling to him. The voice came closer and closer, and the sound was dreadful to Long Jim's ears. Gabe just got up, stretched as if he was tired, and walked out. Long Jim had no idea where Gabe had gone, but he was afraid to be alone by the fire. He went into a dark corner and sat on a box, but he had barely sat down when the door opened. A tall man walked into the room carrying a potato sack. He threw the sack on the floor by the fire. Whatever was in it clanked as the sack fell. Then the tall man opened the sack and dumped the contents on the floor. And Long Jim could see that it was a pile of bones, arm bones and foot bones and hand bones and back bones. Working on the floor in front of the fire The tall man joined the bones together until he had produced a full skeleton of a man. Then he looked down at the skeleton and laughed, grabbed it by the hand and lifted it up. Putting one arm around the skeleton's waist, he started to dance with it. And Long Jim realized that the skeleton was Gabe, the ghost owl. A man was crossing the big swamp when he decided he was too tired to go on and had to rest. So he lay down with his head on a log and soon dropped off to sleep. After a while, he heard someone laughing and talking. Opening one eye, he saw an owl sitting on the stump of a limb on the log. The owl looked down at him, laughing, asked, "Brother, are you resting?" "I've been resting, but I'm done with rest now," the man replied. "I'm leaving here." "Brother, hold on a minute," said the owl. And the man saw that he wasn't really an owl, but the spirit of some person. The man was even more intent on leaving, but he saw that the owl looked kind of ill and weak. And then he realized the owl was the spirit of his grandfather's friend way back in slavery times. The owl wanted to talk, so the man decided to listen. He spent his time flying around at night. He couldn't stand the light of day, and talking, most of the time with other spirits, but sometimes he made himself known to humans. He said he hadn't lived right in this world, and his main pleasure was meeting children of his old friends when they passed out of this world and took on new shapes as he had. He said some of them took on shapes of different birds and animals, but one shape didn't recognize anybody in a different shape. He said he didn't know when he caught a bird or a snake if he was eating a friend or not. Every time the owl said something like that, he laughed, and the man would break out in a cold sweat. The owl told the man he was going to look for him in his world a little later, and that they would have some good laughing and talking. And then the owl said, "Son, I'm going to put something in your ear you will always remember." What is it?" the man wanted to know. I can't say it loud," said the owl. "I gotta whisper it to you." Then he hopped down off the stump and started toward the man, laughing like crazy. That's when the man decided he'd had enough. He didn't want any spirit world sign. He didn't want any old man whispering in his ear, especially old dead men. He broke and ran. The owl floated along behind him, laughing and hollering and making the worst sounds the man had ever heard in his life. From then on, the man avoided the swamp at night, and he wasn't much for visiting it in the daytime either. Wow, right? So, right off the bat, Who doesn't love ghost stories at this time of year? It is the spooky season and you have to do ghost stories, right? These stories came from Moaning Bones, African American Ghost Stories by Jim Haskins. And I think last year I did some other stories from Jim Haskins. I would have to go back and check. I do a lot of stories, right? But looking at ghost stories, depending on where you get them from and what they're meant to do, a lot of them are cautionary tales, right? They send a message to you. And that's what I feel that these 3 stories are doing. I didn't pick these 3 stories for a connective tissue, but after reading them, I feel like they all have that connective tissue unexpectedly, right? So all of them are visited by aspects of death, right? The boys were visited by a buzzard, which a buzzard is basically a bird symbol of death, right? But when they get to that lake, there's something in that lake, there's something in that area that's death, that's wrong, that's evil, right? So much so that the animals that have died there aren't even being eaten by animals that eat dead things, that eat rotting things as buzzards. And when Tommy sees that, he's like, the buzzards aren't even touching these things. We cannot eat these things, right? We can't take them home. And it's like a message, right? To them to change how you look at life. You know, pay attention to what's going on around you. Don't just wander off. Because not everywhere you wander is a safe place. You know, I think the Lake of the Dead was a joke to Tommy at first. Like, he didn't really believe that it existed. You know, and hell, spelled Hale. So if it's a different pronunciation from where you are, it's hell for me. Okay. But once they went on that path, it's like it became real. And it's almost like, watch what you talk about. Watch what you let come out of your mouth, because that can become real and you don't know what or who you're talking to. You know what I mean? I don't know. Because they changed their lives. They changed the way they were. The parents said it. These kids aren't the same kids that they were before they set out that night. They are completely different. And I think that's the same for the 2 other stories. So Gabe's ghost hit me like, I thought Gabe was already dead. I don't know if you thought that, but I thought Gabe was already dead. And during the reading, and it went until the end, and it's like, well, Gabe walks off, he leaves, and then he comes back. The guy comes back, brings Gabe's bones in, and I don't feel like he's been gone that long. So, my question to you, if you care to answer, on this particular story, was Gabe already dead and a ghost, and that was just the Reaper? That tall man was the Reaper bringing him back? Telling him to come back? And he comes in and shows the bones to Long Jim to show him like, yo, you've been with a dead man. You've been walking with a dead man. You've been dining and relaxing with the dead. Change up, or I'm gonna be dancing with you later on. That's what I got from it, right? Change up. Watch who you party with. Watch who you dancing with. Watch who you relaxing with. Because everybody that's in your crew, Some of them are already dead, and you just don't know it yet. You know what I mean? It's creepy. Ugh, I love it. And then, of course, the owl. And if you've been on Afro Tales for a long period of time, you know the owl is the mascot for this show. And I love having owl stories pop up here and there. I will always throw it. If I see it, I'm going to throw it into an episode. But the owl is that messenger. Owls hunt. Owls eat a lot of different animals, small animals, even other birds. You know, I don't know if you've heard the legend, if you know about crows and owls, how they have a bitter rivalry against each other. I think owls also have a rivalry with the eagles. Owls just don't care about anybody. They're disrespectful. They don't care about you. You know, but I feel like that owl was telling that the sun that I'm going to eat you when you die. When you come back as another creature, I'm going to eat you because I eat all the others, because I don't quote unquote know, you know, we don't recognize each other on the other side. Then how do you know that they're turning into them? If that's the case, I think it was a lie. I think he was threatening that guy, and he takes pleasure from eating the children of his old friends. And that's creepy. And that dude said it. I ain't going back out there no more. And I feel like, does that mean that based on how you live your life, you're being reincarnated into something that an owl can eat? Just a prey? Like, I don't know. You see what I'm saying? Like, do you see how all of these 3 stories are like, change your life, bro. Watch who you hang out with. Change how you live in life. Or, you know, this could be you, you know. At least that's what I got from it. Whatever you got from it, I would love to hear. Ghost stories are always something interesting to see what message you get from the story itself. And, you know, yeah, I love them. You know, I love ghost stories. Anyway, go see Chef. Yeah, it's going to have a wonderful recipe for you from the Carolinas somewhere, I know. And until we meet again, thank you for coming on this voyage with me. And as always, have a blessed day.
Welcome, my friends, to the galley. I am your chef, and today we have a wonderful recipe inspired by the story you have just heard. Today, and because it is Halloween coming up, we will be creating Hocus Pocus Smores Pops. Now, what will you need for this here recipe? 12 graham crackers, halved. Half a cup of marshmallow cream. 2 cups semi-sweet chocolate chips. 3 tablespoons coconut oil. 1 bag of candy ice. And 1 container of black cookie frosting. Now, how do we put this together? Easy. Spread about 1 tablespoon of marshmallow cream on half of the graham crackers. Place a popsicle stick halfway in the cream so it sticks from the graham cracker like a handle. Then top with the other graham cracker. Place them on a parchment-lined baking sheet and leave in the freezer until you make the chocolate sauce. Next, in a medium heat-proof bowl, microwave chips and oil in 20-second increments, stirring between each until melted and smooth. About 1 minute total should do. Dip graham cracker sandwiches into chocolate covering completely. You may need to use a butter knife or silicone spatula to make sure the sides are coated. Stick one candy eye on each book on the far right side and halfway down the graham cracker. Place them back on the baking sheet and refrigerate until chocolate has hardened. About 15 minutes should do. Now, use the black cookie frosting to create a circle around the eye. 2 semicircles on the outer corners of the graham cracker. Book and stitches on the chocolate graham cracker. Now, refrigerate until set. At least 15 minutes should do. And that is it, my friends. Now, go. Make this recipe yours. And until I have another wonderful recipe for you, remember these wonderful ghost stories at this spooky time of year. And until next time, my friends, as always, enjoy.
Thank you, my friends, for coming on this voyage. Thanks to Art by Chalet for the logo, episode, and shirt designs. You can get t-shirts and other items on tpublic.com. You can contact me on all socials at AfroTalesCast. That's AfroTalesCast. And email me at AfroTalesCast@gmail.com. You may also become a benefactor by simply sharing with any and everyone, giving a thumbs up, a 5-star rating and review in your podcast app of choice, or simply donating on Patreon or Ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com. So until we meet again, may your winds be fair and your seas follow.